Hi, I'm Andrew McCrae. Welcome to our farm and ranch in northwest Missouri. My great-great-grandfather settled here in 1910, and I'm the fifth generation to grow crops and livestock here. As a farmer myself, I know the highs and lows of this life, the issues we confront every day, some new, some as old as farming itself. This show is a place to talk with farmers and others in the ag industry about topics that mean something to us, topics that can improve the present and future of our operations. This is Farming the Countryside. I always enjoy the chance to visit with Kelly Garrett, who farms in west central Iowa. He's always looking for better ways to grow crops and livestock, and he's always talking with other farmers across the nation to see what ideas they are using on their land. This week we covered a lot of ground, including some of the sap testing he's doing with his growing crops and how those results are influencing what he's doing. He also told me he's replacing some of his fungicide applications with micronutrients, which we get into, and we got an update on some of the carbon programs that impact him and perhaps all of us on the farm. Here's our conversation. Kelly Garrett from Arion, Iowa joins me, and we are truly farmers because we're doing this podcast before 6 a.m., which is when farmers need to get up and get going, right, Kelly?
That's right. This is a great time of day. It's quiet. I can read. I can study some of the research that we're doing, things like that, and no one's around. It's my favorite part of the day.
You know, it is for me too. I just find that I'm up anyway, and so hey, we might as well be visiting. But consistently, I'm up and ready to go. So it's a good time to do interviews, I guess. So, hey, let's start out. I run the I-35 corridor from our farm in Missouri up to Minnesota quite a bit. As I go through Iowa and Minnesota, especially the northern part of that, a lot of water. You're over in west central Iowa. What's the crop been like this year? Have you taken a lot of water there?
We've had adequate rainfall, really great rainfall, actually. What a difference from the last couple of years. 21 was really kind of dry, and then 22 and 23 very dry, a lot of drought, and now all of a sudden, holy cow, it started raining. And we felt early in the spring that we missed a few rains, things like that. Then all of a sudden, April 25th, it started raining, and it really hasn't quit. We've had one dry period, early June there of a couple of weeks where it was hot and people were starting to worry, and they'd be like, boy, we could use a rain. And here it comes again. We just got 8/10 last night, and we had two rains. My son got married last week, and the reception was outdoors. On Friday night, June 21st, we got 6/10. Then on Monday, we got another 7/10. And then last night we got 8/10. And we're forecast today to get another couple inches. It's really pretty amazing. In the hills I live in, if it floods here, we need to build a boat. So we don't have much risk of flooding like we do here about 30, 40 miles west in the Mondayman, Pisgah area, in the Missouri River bottom where they're at, Blencoe, but the rains here have been pretty wonderful. To the north of us, Okoboji, to Sioux Falls, places like that, my heart goes out to them. They have a problem, and they've had too much rain. It's very flat up there. The water can't get away, and I have traveled that same corridor. I flew to Jackson, Minnesota a couple of weeks ago, and boy, you get north of Storm Lake and look off to the northeast, and you can see a lot of water.
Yeah. No, and there are a lot of fields in southern Minnesota that are yellow. I mean, even where the water can get off and it doesn't put it underwater, it's taken a lot of water. So,
Yes.
I'm interested, just based on the year, has that changed anything you're doing? Or when you get started into a year, is this pretty much the plan? Or because you've had so much water, will it change any types of things you're doing this year with the crop?
We have pushed more and more fertility later. We're taking it off of the planter. We still have 8 or 9 things in our infertile program, but only 2 of them are fertility, liquid calcium and zinc. And all of that fertility, Andrew, has got pushed later and later. And I would tell you that, we haven't gotten there yet to make the decision, but based on the potential of the crop, I would say that we'll push it a little harder. Fertility in the R stages with an airplane is becoming more and more important to us.
Well, so I wanted to get to that then. If you're moving it later in the season, then how are you applying and what are you applying to the crop then?
We will apply with an airplane. We have purchased our first drone. We're interested in that technology and seeing what we can do there. But with one drone, we can't cover all the acres. And with the hills and the elevation changes we have, the drone technology isn't quite good enough yet for us to apply all the acres. We, because of Matt Miles, my extreme ag partner in Southeast Arkansas, we are working with a different aviation company, crop dusting company, that's willing to come up here and put on a 4 and 5 gallon rate. We find it challenging with the typical planes that are in our area because the accepted practice is 2 gallons to the acre, and we can't get by with that. We want at least a 4, if not a 5 gallon rate, and which is very common in Matt's part of the world. But we can't. Matt even does some 7 gallon rate. I was just down there this last week. Matt even does some 7 gallon rates out of a plane, unheard of in this territory. It's hard to even get a plane up here to do 3 gallon. And now, Matt has lined me up with a friend of his that does his application. His name's Al Patrick. And Al is going to send planes up here, work with Integrated Ag Solutions, the retail that I have part of, and we're going to apply a 4 and 5 gallon rate, which will allow us to put on all of the nutrients that we want to apply.
So when we talk about applying that, I've seen some of your broadcasts for this year moving away from some of the fungicide and maybe more to the nutrients, but walk me through how you're doing that, because you're not doing the tissue sampling anymore. Is that correct? But you're still obviously testing. You're always tinkering and testing. That's why I like, talking with you about some of this.
So this is a big topic, this is oversimplifying it, but to try to, to give you a brief explanation, we have met an agronomist in Idaho. His name's Jared Cook. And then because of Jared, we've met Clint Freeze in Augusta, Illinois. Clint and his partner Luke own BioAg Management. And BioAg Management and Integrated Ag now work very closely together, coming out with like a co-branded line of products and things like that. And at the heart of the research is SAP testing. We SAP test with New Age Labs out of Michigan. They're the only lab in the United States that conducts these sort of data analysis, things like that. The SAP testing that they do, they only take the sap out of the phloem and xylem. So you only know, or the information you're going to get is what is moving in the plant, what nutrients are moving in the plant. We also always, every time we take a SAP test, we take a soil test, because we want to know what's available in the soil, what's moving in the plant, and then it becomes predictive. And essentially what we want to know is, are we assimilating all of the nitrogen? And so in ag right now, or in the environmental space right now, there's all this talk about over application of nitrogen, which we believe is true, but I would tell you it's an incomplete statement. We have an over application of nitrogen relative to the amount of micronutrients we're putting on. The corn plant, or really any plant, uses micronutrients to produce amino acids. Those amino acids then convert that nitrogen to protein. So if we don't have enough micronutrients, we are not converting or assimilating all of the nitrogen. And that leads to a plant that's out of balance. Then that leads to a plant that's not healthy. And that's when disease can set in. So what we find is, if we can assimilate all that nitrogen, and the definition of assimilation to us is using 95% of the nitrogen. We do not want to have that over application of nitrogen, or not over application. We don't want to have that over abundance of nitrogen in the plant. When we can assimilate the nitrogen, we reach a plant that can then reach its potential, and the health is such that we believe that fungicides and other things like that are not necessary. If a disease comes in, I am not at all against using a fungicide, but my goal is to build a plant that is healthy enough that its own immunity will will ward off the disease, and it won't be needed. Last year we saw that. Last year we went without fungicide, and our crop was very healthy. It's the first time in years that I haven't used fungicide. I'm not trying to say that fungicide is bad at all. I'm just trying to say that I can reallocate those dollars and build a healthier plant. Fungicide protects yield. It doesn't make it, Andrew. And the products we're putting on make yield because it's fertility. So I keep taking or reallocating dollars off of that planter, putting them into that airplane, and fertilizing through the R stages. That does several things. It helps me balance the nitrogen. I don't have to spend the money till later in the year. And with 8% interest, that's something that's nice. I don't have to make the decision whether I want to spend that money till later in the year. Like with the rain we have and things like that, I would say this is a year to try to make as much yield as possible. In the years of 22 and 23, we made these applications, but we maybe didn't push it quite as hard because some of the crop didn't have that potential with the drought. So it allows you to make this decision later. The one statement that Jared Cook made to me 2 years ago when we were first learning with him and researching was American agriculture produces a very sexy looking vegetative crop. I want to produce a reproductive crop. And at the heart of that statement is what we're doing, putting all those nutrients up front, especially that nitrogen. Boy, that corn is green and blue and all this. Well, it's simply a vegetative response. I need those micronutrients later in the season for the reproductive response. And that is something that you have to wrap your head around is it's a different mindset, but we can validate it with the SAP test.
Well, there's so much that we could talk about underneath there. You mentioned the nitrogen. Do you have an overall, obviously you have a nitrogen program, but how has that changed? Are you still doing fall applied nitrogen and some things that we would think would be common in the industry, or how does the nitrogen look like as you space that out over the season then?
We fall applied anhydrous is still our main source of nitrogen, and there's a lot of talk about it's hard on soil health and things like that. And I'm not debating that it's not. But I haven't found a product yet that beats anhydrous. I can't do it. Whereas we used to put on 180 pounds to the acre, 180 pounds of axle to the acre, and just, you went in and blanket applied it. Now, for the last several years, we variable rate it, and we continue to turn it down. We used to be at like 140 pounds, 120 pounds in a high yield area, and up to 240 pounds in a low yield area. Now, because of SAP testing and the soil tests we're taking, we're validating the nitrogen that's out there. In a high yield area, I'm now applying 80 pounds of anhydrous. In a low yielding area, I'm at 150 or 160 pounds of anhydrous. And that, I know that seems like it's the opposite of what it should be. You would think I would be putting the heavier rate on in the higher yielding area. The reason that we're not is we're validating what the ground is producing, what my soil here in Western Iowa is producing. And you're going to find this next statement a little shocking, but we validated this 2 years in a row in our best yielding soils, Andrew, on July 1st. So today's July 2nd. The field by my house on July 1st of 22 had 817 pounds of nitrogen available in the top 2 feet. On July 1st of 23, so a year ago, 600 pounds available. That was in a different field. It was a couple miles away. In a low yielding area, we will still find that there's a couple hundred pounds available. So the 1.1 or 1.2 pounds of nitrogen to produce a bushel of corn, I don't have any trouble with that. I think that's true. But as farmers, we need to validate what is your ground producing and give credit to that. That will do 2 things if you can do that. Number one, it's going to save you some money because you don't need to go put 240 pounds of anhydrous in a high yielding area. The ground is giving it to you, but potentially the ground is giving it to you. Number two, when we're trying to balance that crop and have a healthy crop, think about there's your over application of nitrogen. And Jared didn't even know if it was possible for us to reach 95% assimilation in a high yield area because of all the nitrogen that we have available. But we were able to reach it. Last year we flew the plane at V10, R1, and R5, applying those micronutrients. And we saw some very special things out in that field, but we could not hold it. Now, we don't know if it was the drought. We don't know if we need to try to assimilate higher. But we did reach the assimilation, and we were pretty excited about what we saw. But then I was not satisfied with the results. But early on, with what we produced, it was great. We just couldn't hold it. I'll tell you, 75% of our plants had 2 ears, and I was like, "Holy cow, we have really rung the dinner bell here." But then they aborted. We didn't hold all of those second ears, and so I was disappointed in that. And I'm now on a quest to hold that second ear. And that's really the goal of what we're trying to accomplish. That would be the visual goal of what we're trying to accomplish. I really think that we're a long way from reaching the potential of what a corn crop can do.
You've mentioned testing several times. What does the testing look like? How extensive? And then this has to be in season, this SAP testing. So how are you collecting all of that data?
The testing isn't much different than tissue testing. When we go and take this SAP test, it's the time of day is a little bit more particular, things like that. the leaf that you need to take is a little more particular. And then of course you have to take that soil sample. So it is more work than a tissue test, but not tremendously more. And the accuracy of the data we get back, the juice is definitely worth the squeeze.
Another area I wanted to get into that we've talked about before is carbon. And I know that Extreme Ag and yourself have been active out there, in the carbon market and trying to continue to get farmers linked up down the chain, so to speak, with others that are interested in those carbon credits. Just give me the outlook of where we stand right now. Are we ahead, behind? Are you disappointed where we're at? How do you feel about all of this?
I'm both. You're seeing companies like Truterra and Arva that have pulled back a little bit. That's not because Truterra and Arva want to pull back. Their programs got fuller faster than what they have in previous years. I think that's because you have more and more farmers wanting to take part, but I also think it's because some of the money that is provided, some of the companies that provide money to Truterra and Arva are pulling back a little bit because they're, and is that because of 45Z? Is that because of a change in the economy? I'm not sure. So I'm disappointed because of that pullback. It is exciting though that more and more farmers are taking place with Extreme Ag, and then Windy Ridge Ag, who's the retailer that we've always used, and then with JC Ag Financial. Those three organizations have started a new LLC, and we call it Regenerative Roots Solutions. And JC, the three of us were working kind of informally, and this new LLC is just kind of a formal partnership. And we are now working with Leading Harvest, which is a nonprofit out of the Northwest. And we believe that we are going to come with some of our own programs. We've identified some areas where we think that we can step in and help. So I'm incredibly excited about that, to come out with our own program. We also, with Regenerative Root Solutions, we are talking with a few ethanol plants about helping manage their 45Z programs and CI programs for farmers. And of course, now Secretary Vilsack came out, and we have these 30 days of communication to decide, or to help maybe steer what 45Z is going to look like. I'm disappointed that we're having these 30 days. I would like to have that information. I think everybody would like to have some more clarification on the GREET model update that is supposed to come, on the IRS interpretation of 45Z. So I am a bit disappointed on that front, because give us the information so we can be prepared and get ready. January 1st of 25 is coming, when 45Z is supposed to start, and we're really up in the air. We're in a no man's land, Andrew. We don't know what to do because we don't have enough clarification.
And for those that don't know, maybe you can give them the quick thumbnail sketch. 45Z means what?
45Z is a tax credit that says that an ethanol plant can get a 2 cent per gallon tax credit for every point they are under 50 on the CI scale. And so the average across the United States of ethanol for a CI score, the average across the United States, the Department of Energy says, is a 55 for ethanol. And for corn, it's a 29.1. That 29.1 for corn, of course, goes into the 55 of ethanol, because corn is the feedstock. The other 26 points are the carbon footprint that the production of ethanol is. CI is a metric of your carbon footprint. And a CI score, if you had the information and you use the GREET model, you can give a CI score to anything. And I believe in 5 years, some people think it'll be longer than that, but I believe in, say 5 to 7 years, everything that we purchase will have a CI score attached, especially what we eat and what we wear. And so I believe you'll see programs coming for low CI pork, low CI beef, low CI cotton for the clothing we're wearing, things like that. But the 45Z then, a 2 cent per gallon rebate. The accepted science is 2.75 gallons of ethanol for every bushel of corn. So then every point on the CI scale is worth 5.5 cents. Now, the ethanol plants need traceability back to our farms to see what our CI score is. My CI score is approximately a -3. So I'm 32 points better than the average. So like my local ethanol plant here in Denison, Iowa, I don't know exactly what their personal score is, but if you look at the average of 55 and my score is 32 points better than the average, then my corn, the ethanol produced from my corn then wouldn't be a 55, it would be a 23, which then would offer 27 points of value, the difference between 50 and 23, 27 points of value, or 54 cents per gallon tax credit for the ethanol plant. And so a lot of talk is what we're doing is how much of that tax credit will the ethanol plant pass on to farmers? That is the point we're trying to make. So the premium that my corn is worth for the 45Z tax credit is a lot. It's in excess of $1.50 a bushel of what the premium the ethanol plant will get. That's where we're at right now, but we're waiting on IRS interpretation of the law, and we're waiting on a GREET model update because my score could change some.
Kelly, in the time we've got left here, just curious what you're seeing out in the countryside. We have been a lot of farm loan operating rates now are in the eights, maybe above, just depends where people are at and what they're doing. Are you seeing much difference in the countryside as far as how people are farming, whether they're actively buying land, equipment? Have these rates impacted us that much? What do you see where you're at?
It appears that the land market is still very, very strong. My John Deere friends would tell you, it was interesting. I deal with Van Wall here in Denison, Iowa. Great group of people. The used equipment that they have to move is an enormous job for them. And this last weekend, when I was down in Southeast Arkansas with Matt Miles, he deals with Ag Up, another large John Deere organization, and they sure would be interested if somebody would want to come and buy some one-year-old equipment. That is a message that you'll hear all across is the used equipment is piling up. And so I think that there's a change there. I think farmers are pulling back a little bit. Like with integrated ag this year, there was a lot of talk about fertility programs and things like that because we've been used to 3, 4, 5% interest, and now all of a sudden it's 8.5%. That really changes your bottom line, and it's something that you have to account for. Where before, 3% interest is very negligible, 8% interest is not. It's something that I haven't dealt with in my farming career. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I just wonder if we've seen the full effect yet, and I guess depends how old you are listening to this or watching this. There have been higher interest rates. My father can easily talk about that. Are we in a new territory? Is this going to be the new normal? I don't know, but I do wonder if we have not yet seen some of the impact on land purchases and machinery purchases. Maybe it's still coming down the road because it's starting to hit the balance sheet this year and will continue to hit the balance sheet, I feel.
I agree. I don't think that we've seen the full force of it yet. Right now you're talking about approximately 430 December corn on the board. You're talking about 8.5% interest. I read one metric. I don't know the credibility of this, but I read one metric that adjusted for inflation, corn is lower now than it was in 1987. And I haven't fact checked that, but then when you think back and you think about inflation, they were talking about $3.90 corn or something, and for inflation adjustment, the gross dollars this year, if corn market stays right here, will be far less than what people have been used to the last couple of years. And then you tack that interest on top. I would sure think it would affect the land market next winter, but we shall see.
As usual, Kelly, we have so much that we could visit about. We just need to do a few more programs here. Let people know if they've not heard Extreme Ag, how can they easily find you and some of what you're doing and the info you're getting out to folks?
We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. We of course have our website. It's extremeag.farm. Extreme starts with an X. We dropped the first E. So yeah, check us out at extremeag.farm. We have our own TV show. You can find it on YouTube or Acres TV. Love to have you check us out.
Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it.
You bet. Bye.